evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said the federal government is putting the unique needs of Indigenous communities first. At a health update on Wednesday, he once again made this point. However, one Northern Ontario First Nation says the reality on the ground is quite different. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
From the beginning of this pandemic, as a federal government, we have paid particular attention to the vulnerabilities faced by Indigenous people and Indigenous communities across this country.
That's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking at a COVID health update 1 week ago. However, Bearskin Lake First Nation leaders say there's a big difference between what the Prime Minister says and what Ottawa actually does. He's currently experiencing a major COVID outbreak, and in late December, they asked for outside military assistance. A few people have been working in the community since the weekend, but former NAN Grand Chief Charles Fox says these are Canadian Rangers, part-time reservists who are already living there. As far as boots on the ground help from Ottawa, he says they haven't gotten any.
Out of sight, out of mind, that was the message that we were getting. And it was all cloaked in daggers. Oh yeah, we sent to the military. They have these pictures. And there's no military on the ground. There's nothing on the ground. There's no government presence on the ground. And so that just further reinforces that, I suppose, relationship that we've had with the settler governments over the last 100 plus years.
Current NAN Grand Chief Derek Fox says Bearskin Lake's COVID crisis has left all of its First Nations feeling particularly vulnerable.
When you're living in Thunder Bay and Toronto and Ottawa and even Sulico, you have a hospital to go to. Our First Nations don't have that. So the fact that it's spreading within our NAN First Nations is deeply concerning.
On Wednesday, APTN News asked Trudeau about Bearskin Lake's complaint about Ottawa's handling of the COVID situation. His answer was a familiar one.
I think it's important to remember that from the very beginning of this pandemic, the focus of this federal government was on ensuring that Indigenous communities, which we'd seen during previous pandemics like H1N1, are particularly vulnerable, which is why from March 2020 onwards, we gave particular focus and emphasis on supporting Indigenous communities through this difficult pandemic.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
First Nations in northern Manitoba are among the many communities across the country seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases. One NDP MP is calling for the military support to come on into these communities, but not everybody agrees that that's the best solution. Our Daryl Stranger has more.
At least 10 First Nations in northern Manitoba have put travel restrictions and or lockdowns in place. Some have even declared a state of emergency, something the Manitoba Kiiwetinawi Ogamaganak, which represents 26 First Nations communities in Manitoba's north, expressed concern over. We know surge supports are not as robust as they were in earlier waves. It is important for MKO to ensure our communities have access to supports. However, we understand this may be a significant challenge with an overwhelmed healthcare system. According to the Manitoba government, the Northern Health region has just over 1,500 active cases and 27 hospitalizations due to COVID. NDP MP for Churchill Kiiwetinokaski Nikki Ashton put out an open letter calling for help from the military. She said, in part, remote and isolated communities like Mantosipi Cree Nation require particular support. This includes bringing the military back to ensure communities are able to function and limit the spread of COVID-19. Lives are on the line. The military would assist communities with things like running checkpoints, food delivery, and more nurses for checkups and vaccines. Now, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Arlen Dumas issued a response to the call for military help, saying it is a stopgap solution. This open letter and comments by Nikki Ashton to the media is for political optics. Ms. Ashton did not reach out to First Nation leadership before sensationalizing the issue of hospital closures and need for emergency staffing. Now, Dumas wrote, AMC is concerned with the long-standing inequalities and insufficient investments in health that put First Nations at a higher risk for more severe outbreaks and outcomes. We require long-term investment and solutions that are First Nation driven. The call for military support disrespects the efforts taken to date by First Nations leadership, the First Nations Pandemic Response Coordination Team, and health leaders in our First Nations. Now, Indigenous Services Canada wrote they are continuing to work closely with Manitoba First Nations communities, regional health authorities, and the province to manage cases of COVID-19 through support planning and preparedness and response activities. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks, Daryl. Well, still in northern Manitoba, a small town has closed its only health centre's doors, leaving some residents travelling hundreds of kilometres for health care. APTN's Michelle Karlenzig has more.
For the 500 or so people who call Leaf Rapids home, there's just one place for emergency health care. And this week, residents learned the Leaf Rapids Healthcare Centre will close down. The nearest hospital is 100 kilometres away. It's not the first time it's closed this year, and for local resident Dennis Anderson, the shutdown hits close to home.
I just thought to myself, not again, you know, like, especially right now. And my mother, like, she's 82 years old, you know, like, so there is, you know, like, family issues here as well. She's, you know, like 82 years old. She was out visiting in Winnipeg and had appointments. Now she can't even come home because we have no medical facility here. And it's like, it's just like, it's heartbreaking, the stories you're hearing from people.
According to an announcement from the Northern Regional Health Authority, the centre closed due to staffing issues. Leaf Rapids residents will be transferred to Lynn Lake, 1 hour away, or Thompson, nearly 3 hours away. In an email from NRHA, a spokesperson said, "No one wants to close a health facility. We understand the apprehension some community members feel. We have been forced to take this decision as a result of staff falling ill and excluded due to the COVID-19 screening and usual replacements not being available." In regards to when the centre will reopen, Anderson says he fears the worst.
Heaven forbid, but if somebody dies in this community, who's responsible?
MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee has come out to support the community with an online statement saying, "The availability of health services in Leaf Rapids and Gillam is a long-standing issue. It would be reassuring to see some movement to address these issues." Anderson says the closure is nothing new.
This has been an ongoing issue with healthcare here, like over the years. They can blame COVID all they want, but COVID is not the issue here because these are long-standing issues. You know, cutbacks in our healthcare, you know, only emergent staff, you know, like there's many more issues that need to be addressed.
He said the community feels abandoned. NRHA staff will continue to test for COVID-19 and give vaccines at the clinic and can't say when it'll open its healthcare centre. Michelle Karlenzig, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Quebec Premier François Legault made waves countrywide yesterday when announcing that the province's unvaccinated population would be subject to a financial penalty, now dubbed the Vax Tax. But even 24 hours later, Legault's announcement seems to be having the desired effect. On Tuesday, Legault told reporters all unvaccinated Quebecers without a legitimate medical exemption would be subject to a significant fine. By Wednesday morning, the province's health minister took to Twitter saying more than 7,000 people had registered for their first dose, the highest seen all week. Health Minister Christian Dubé called it encouraging. When asked about the Vax tax this morning, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had this response.
This Quebec proposal is something that obviously everyone is paying attention to right now, but there are still many details to know. And the details will be important in how this works, how it balances the values and the rights that we all cherish as Canadians with the necessity of keeping people safe. Vaccines are about keeping Canadians safe, continuing to get through this pandemic the best possible way. And various orders of government are right to look at different ways of encouraging and incentivizing people to get vaccinated.
We need to take a break, but still ahead, a friendship centre is now homeless. We'll tell you why. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Mikmaq Native Friendship Centre in Halifax has to pack its bags. It can no longer stay in the building they've been occupying because it's beyond repair. Staff have started moving to a temporary location available for the next 3 years, but as Angel Moore reports, after that time is up, the Friendship Centre may have nowhere to go.
This is the new location of the Mikmaq Native Friendship Centre. According to the centre's executive director, Pamela Glow-Durocher, it's merely a temporary home.
We have it for the 3 years, and then we'll be homeless in 3 years. That's what I keep telling myself. But it gives us 3 years to actually figure out what is going to happen with the new building. We are working with the federal government as well through ISK on possible extension, because we know even if we start a building today, a new building, probably still would not be ready in 3 years.
Plans for a new building were unveiled in 2018 to be built at the site of the old Red Cross Blood Services building. The ceremony was attended by community members and dignitaries, hopeful the new centre would open in 2021. But then COVID hit. Government funding promises missed deadlines, and demands for services at the Friendship Centre increased.
If that hadn't been there, that safety net of a Friendship Centre in Halifax, we roughly service about 7,000 people a year. If that hadn't been there, there would have been a lot of people that would have continued to fall through those gaps and would have actually been left behind.
The Friendship Centre has been a fixture in the north end of Halifax since the 1980s. It's been a big part of Chris Nicholas's life.
I became heavily involved in the youth program, which after that, in the youth program and through my aunt, I met my wife. We ended up having 2 children and involving them in the Aboriginal Head Start program.
Nicholas is a member of the Quebecs First Nation, even though his official position is the IT support person. He keeps the furnace running in the old location.
It's a major problem that we need a new Friendship Centre. As I said, I'm an IT guy. I'm not a boiler furnace person, but you know, we use the resources we have to stay functioning for our program. And
the furnace has to be drained every 2 days, flooding the basement with steaming hot water. Nicholas says the building is no longer safe.
And that's only our pipes that are wrapped in asbestos. That doesn't include our walls and our ceilings that are stucco asbestos.
The second floor is the main room, where gatherings and events were held. Damage from the leaky roof is evident.
I mean, we're to the point right now where we literally just stuck our white duct tape over it, because the next rainfall it's just going to come through again, and every time we're just sinking more and more money into repairing that. And
over at the temporary location, staff are slowly moving in, but Glow-Durocher says governments need to step up and live up to the promises made in 2018 to fund a new building.
Everybody talks about truth and reconciliation. And yet, when it comes time to do the actual hard work of doing it, I'm not sure people actually want to do it. And if you really want to make a difference in our communities, step up and invest, step up and do the hard work.
APTN News asked Indigenous Services for an interview, but a written response was not ready by airtime. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabukduk, also known as Halifax.
It's time for us to take another break, but when we come back, the economic outlook for the Indigenous economy this year. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Gail Gordon sent us this picture from her early morning drive near Merritt, British Columbia. Stay safe on those roads as you enjoy the beauties of your territories. And for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day, you can send your pictures to share at aptn.ca. Let's take a look now at the weather forecast for tomorrow. To the east coast, we've got sunshine and -8 for St. John's, 0 and snow for Halifax. Kuujjuaq -22 and snow expected. Happy Valley Goose Bay sunshine -19. Saguenay and Chibougamau, you're getting snow. Same with St. Eels. North Bay, snow for you as well, -11. Snow and -5 for Sault Ste. Marie. Cloud continues up north. Kapuskasing -7 or -18 and snow. -12 though in sunshine for Thunder Bay. Sunshine and minus 30 for Thompson. Norway House, minus 23 and sunny. Sunshine and minus 6 for Winnipeg. Brandon, you're getting some snow, and minus 3. Same with you, Dauphin. Minus 4 and snow for Yorkton. Saskatoon, minus 2 and snow. Minus 9 and snow for Buffalo Narrows. Sunshine and minus 25 for Stony Rapids. Snow for Fort McMurray and minus 11 there. Sunshine for Fort Chip, minus 14. Lethbridge, hot, 11 degrees and sunny skies. 10 with a mix of sun and cloud for Medicine Hat. 7 and sunny for Penticton. Victoria, rain and 8. Prince Rupert, showers and 6 degrees. Prince George, sunny and 2. Mayo, minus 12 and snow. Rock River, mix of sun and cloud, minus 19. Minus 21 and snow for Norman Wells. Wati, mix of sun and cloud, minus 22. Polytech, minus 25 and snow. Inuvik, minus 23. You've had some snow there too. Sunshine, though, for Nuyot, you've looked at minus 29 and sunny. Minus 35 and clear for Whale Cove. Minus 35 and clear for Igloolik. Pangertung, minus 24 and sunny skies. What does this new year hold for the Indigenous economy? Well, earlier today on In Focus, I discussed just that with a panel of experts who had lots to say about the growth expected and how do we do economics with more heart and culture. Here's a clip from that conversation.
Now, I think the doors have been open for Indigenous organizations to collaborate and communities to collaborate more and looking at developing our own institutions on our terms, to begin having a fulsome strategy developed by Indigenous organizations in Canada on economic recovery. I think that that's really important for us.
The narrative has been to demonstrate that an investment now reduces the long-term spend in the future, and by including Indigenous participation in the economy, everybody benefits. You've seen the decline in the resource sector because we're affirming our rights and title to the lands that are ours. 285 court cases support us, so communities are going to be expecting a lot more. In Canada, if they want to see prosperity, they have to include us.
I mean, the more the opportunities that we get, it's going to help. And overall, it does help the full Canadian economy because, I mean, there are always purchases that are made. When we get revenue coming in, we're going to be spending money. So yeah. I think there's some hope out there. And I think there's a reason for us to smile. There is so many struggles, but you know what? We're going to take care of ourselves.
It was a very good conversation with those three. You can find that on our website, aptnnews.ca/infocus. Well, a veteran of the music industry has passed away. Juno Award-winning musician, producer, and festival curator Vince Fontaine died suddenly this week. Fontaine, who is from Saugeen First Nation in Manitoba, received more than 75 nominations and 30 awards with his group, Eagle and Hawk. He also founded the award-winning group Indian City. For more on Fontaine's legacy, we're joined by David McLeod, the General Manager of Native Communications Incorporated and a member of the APTN Board of Directors. David, thank you for being with us. You know, the passing of Vince Fontaine is such a big loss, obviously for his friends and his family, but the music community as well in Manitoba and beyond. How are you going to remember him?
I'm going to remember, when it comes to remembering, I just hope it's not remembering. I hope it's inspiring that he continues the work, that the work he started continues, because I think he came about in the early 90s with in terms of developing Eagle and Hawk. It was 1994 that the band started, and at that time there was a real interest in terms of mainstream looking at the Indigenous community. So Vince was the perfect person to be around at that period to build bridges. So he forms this band, and then they wind up going to Europe more than a dozen times and then recording albums and winning Junos and working, collaborating with incredible people, including the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. So I'm going to remember him as, he was a Renaissance musical force of that era, of the 1990s.
You know, musician, producer, composer, festival curator. What do you think that history is going to remember Vince's legacy as being?
I think it's going to be that he was a, he was in terms of like the output. I think he was a really hard worker. He's an ambassador for the Indigenous community in terms of pulling people together and making projects happen. So I think that's what he'll be remembered for. Not so much as being the guitar player in a couple of bands. I mean, and even the legacy of like Eagle and Hawk putting out 10 albums, Indian City putting out 3 albums, winning Junos. He hasn't got enough credit for his writing. I talked to him about that one time. I'm just like, everybody sees you as Vince Fontaine, the guitar player with these incredible bands, but really he was, his musicianship and his songwriting were incredible, but also relationship building across the borders and building bridges between the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous community, and at the same time bringing messages like songs about murdered and missing Indigenous women, bringing that to the forefront, to the stage, songs about environmental concerns, bringing that to the stage, unifying people at shows. Sometimes they would sing Keith Secola's song, Indian Cars at the end of the concert, and everybody would form a huge circle and hold hands and move within that circle while the song played. I mean, that I think it's just as a visionary. Yeah. Let me just say that Vince Fontaine was a visionary for the community.
Well, the tributes are certainly pouring out on social media, so the impact that you speak of obviously is huge, and it exceeds just our Indigenous circles here, the music circle there. It's much broader than that. We thank you for taking the time, David, to share some of your thoughts on Vince's legacy. We're really glad that you could join us.
And thoughts and prayers to his kids, absolutely. Also to his family. The fans, and to all the musicians out there, particularly the young musicians who were touched by in terms of him giving them advice and guidance. So I think that's something you're seeing a lot on social media. So Vince, we're going to miss you, and you were a beautiful force of music and love. So thank you very much for everything you did.
Yes. Marcy, thank you so much, David. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I'm the bearer of even more bad news. The Indigenous arts and entertainment community has been delivered another devastating blow. Writer and producer Jackie Black has died after a brief illness. Jackie was a Anishinaabe from Manitoba. She was a lifelong Winnipegger whose career included writing gigs with productions such as Teepee Tales for our children and Taken, about murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Jackie was best known for her work on major productions like Aboriginal Day Live and the Aboriginal Music Awards. She was very well known as artists and audiences alike, and as a hardworking and kind-hearted person. So not a pleasant way to wrap up our midweek news with those last 2 items. Our love and prayers are obviously with those mourning Vince Fontaine and Jackie Black. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care. We'll see you back here tomorrow.